Oh, good.
All right, welcome everyone to my first webinar with My Daily 11. I'm pretty excited to finally be presenting one to you all. I am your host, Gregory T. Obert. We'll get into that in a minute, and I'm also joined by Coach Hassan as well. And I wanted to give you a quick webinar to showcase what I think are the top 3 video games for beginners, and I'll jump into why that is in a little bit. So without further ado, let's get started. So welcome to everyone, my daily 11 subscribers specifically. I'm very grateful that you all showed up either now or sometime in the far future. A little bit about me. Well, first, this is the outline. We're going to do a little bit about me and why I'm doing this. We're going to jump into the top 3 games, and then we're going to have some additional resources for both players and consumers. And that picture is the most ridiculous headpiece I could find for my avatar on Xbox. So that's why it's a little creepy, but also funny at the same time. So who am I, aside from some creepy smiling person on the internet? Again, my name is Gregory T. Obert. I've been here for a few webinars. I work with Coach Hassan, and I'm co-founder of Self Start Academy. But beyond that, I also am an author, a counselor, and a consultant on all sorts of different issues. But one thing that people don't necessarily know about me is that I'm an long time, probably longer than a normal person should. But I remember and for those of you that actually remember that system, it had real life floppy disks, not those little hard diskettes. No, these were actual floppy disks, and I had to have my program it to start the game because I couldn't reach it. And then I had a joystick and a button, and that was it. I don't know, gosh, 2, 3, 4 maybe. And I've played almost every major system that's come out since then. And I love it. It's just a great hobby. I think there's a lot of value in it. And I hope to share that with you today. And if you're wondering a little bit more about, what I've done outside of just playing games, I've also hosted 2 completed video game podcasts in the past. So they're no longer running, but you can still find them up on iTunes if you're interested in hearing what we did. And, I play regularly, almost every night, to keep up to date on the news and the industry. So I like to think that I know what I'm talking about, and I hope to share some of that knowledge with you all today. So why do this? What's the point of having a PowerPoint about gaming in the first place, especially from something like My Daily 11? It's not typically focused on games. Well, I find that gaming, just like anything else, can be very rewarding. But unfortunately, gaming can be very difficult to get into. There's this idea coined by Extra Credits, which is a fantastic series on YouTube, that they talk about gaming literacy. So what does that mean? It means basic things about gaming that, say, I would just understand without having to think about, whereas somebody who's never played before might not understand. So for example, when you think about a movie, if you think about a cut or a scene or a certain type of shot, people typically know what that is because it's very common. When you go see a movie, it's very, it's all over the place, you get it. But when you talk about point of view, for example, when you talk about crouch toggle, when you talk about, active reloading, these are things that people typically don't know about unless they actually game. And I think what's happened over the past, I'd say 30 or so years that the industry has really been around, people like myself, we get really into it, we get really excited, we get really passionate, and we build up this knowledge over the years. Unfortunately, when somebody new is trying to sort of pierce that veil, they don't necessarily get, all the knowledge that people like myself have accrued. So I think it's important to really break down key concepts for new audiences to make sure that games are not intimidating for them. For example, I would imagine most guys in the audience could relate to this. Typically, you'll see your audience is male, although that's not always the case, at least as far as console gaming goes. and you have, say somebody in your life who's a female who's interested in playing and you want to bring them in. I've found a lot in my experience that friends of mine who do that with their girlfriends, they put them on like the hardest difficulty in Halo or Call of Duty. And it's just so intimidating because they're just struggling with the controls. It's like, that's not fun for anybody at all. So I think it's important to take a step back and find 3 games that are easy to pick up and play, that are very different from one another, but also easily accessible. And these aren't games that are from, 20 years ago. These are games that you can get right now on pretty much any modern system. So I hope that you all enjoy these games and this little journey that we go on. So without further ado, let's begin. So first up on the list is Telltale's The Walking Dead. Now, most people are familiar with The Walking Dead, originally the comic, but of course the AMC TV show. There's a separate entity that's kind of tied to the Walking Dead universe, and that's the Telltale games. They're episodic games. They are not in any way related to the show. Now, of course, you'll see some characters, some similarities, but you really don't need to know the first thing about the show or the comics to enjoy these games because they're brand new original stories. These are adventure games, meaning that you will walk around the environment and sort of examine things. There's some light puzzle solving stuff, but it's nothing too difficult. And the controls are easy to pick up and play with an incredible story. So why do I tell you about this game in particular? 2 reasons I just listed. First, very easy to pick up and play. You're not struggling with the controls. Everything is explained to you very clearly. You see your character in front of you, so it's not like a first-person game where you have to use 2 thumbsticks. Very easy to control. And second, the story is absolutely incredible. I've played through this game twice now, once by myself, once with someone else, and I've watched a couple Let's Plays of it on YouTube, so people who just play through the game and comment over it. Every single time, people have just bawled their eyes out at the end. And I'm not one for, crying in movies, let alone games. And it got me too, I gotta be honest. So the relationship between Lee and Clementine, who are the characters you see in the box art there, is absolutely expertly crafted. And it's just a great romp through this universe. Now, I will admit it's a little slow. At first, the game is divided into 5 episodes. So episode 1 is a little slow, but once you hit episode 2, you'll be hooked for the rest of the season. And since it came out a few years ago, it's very easy to get the entire season right now. So you can just, blow through all the episodes if you want to. This game is available on pretty much anything with a screen. I would recommend a tablet or bigger, as far as your screen goes. You can get it on iOS and Android, I believe on Android as well. But it's definitely a great game, won many Game of the Year awards. It is rated M for mature. I will leave a link to the ESRB's website at the very end of the webinar. The ESRB is the Entertainment Software Ratings Board. So they rate games just like the MPAA rates movies. So M for mature is 17 plus. I wouldn't recommend playing this with the kiddies because there are some, mature themes that go on, especially, gore and blood because they're zombies, right? But if you are old enough to handle it, highly recommend it. Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1. They're on Season 3 now. So if you like what you see in the first season, you have even more to play. Jumping into the second game, this is called Rayman Legends. So Rayman's been around since the PlayStation 1 era back in the 90s. And his games have varied quite a bit from console to console. But the one that came out recently that just absolutely blew me away was Rayman Legends. This is absolutely perfect for anybody. So it's very similar to Super Mario. So if you remember Super Mario Brothers from the 80s, like this is the exact same thing. You're going to go from left to right, you jump, and there's a couple added controls. So like you can punch enemies and you can crawl under things, but it's very, very simple. The graphics are absolutely stunning. I've very rarely come across a game that's so colorful and vibrant as Rayman Legends. And it's kid-friendly, of course. It's rated E for everyone. I believe it may be E10 plus, but it's, it's very kid friendly. There's really nothing dark like The Walking Dead going on. It's simple to pick up and play, but it's hard to master. So if you enjoy, platformers, this would be a platformer where you just jump from platform to platform, go from left to right, and try to get to the end of the level. If you enjoy that type of game, this is for you. And honestly, this may be controversial to say, but I believe Rayman Legends has been better than even some of the more recent Mario games. I think it just flows very, very well, and it's just an excellent addition to anybody's gaming library, especially people who are just starting out. And beyond that, Rayman Legends includes basically the entirety of the game that came before it, which was Rayman Origins. So you're pretty much getting 2 games for the price of 1. This is available on, I believe it's on PC. It's certainly available on Xbox, on PlayStation, the current generation, and even last generation PS3 and Xbox 360. I'm not sure about iOS. I don't think it's available there, or Android. So you have to sit down with a console for this one, but it is so worth it. Go check it out if you're interested in getting a really great experience. And last but not least, this one is probably the most controversial of the 3, and this is Gone Home. So there's a genre of games out there that some people use this term lovingly, some people use it in a kind of put down way, called walking simulators. So essentially you assume the role of a protagonist. This is a first person game, just like Halo, just like Call of Duty, and you just walk around and you experience a story. So you examine items in your environment, there's some light puzzle solving. This is one of those types of games. Gone Home is about a woman named Kate. She's a college student, and she comes home. I believe it's set in the 90s. She comes home to this old house that her parents and her sister, her younger sister, had inherited, and her entire family is gone. There's nobody is home. And so she, breaks into her own house and walks around to try and figure out what happened to them. This is a slower game. Again, you're walking around. You're not going to be fighting anybody. It's just going to be basically enjoying the atmosphere and piecing together this mystery. The reason why I put this on the list is, first off, the story was quite good. It has an emotional ending. The content of the story may be controversial depending on your religious views, but I think it was very well done for the most part. The reason why I picked this game is because, as I mentioned with Halo, or with Call of Duty, you have people who are thrown into first-person games. You have to use the left stick to walk around. I hope this translates to the actual screen, so I'm not mixing up my hands here. You have to use the left stick to walk around and the right stick to look around. So when you combine those 2 things, it's kind of difficult to do. I remember playing the original Halo on Xbox back in 2001. And for someone who had played games for more than a decade at that point, it was hard for me to kind of get used to that concept, let alone someone who's never played before. This is the perfect paced game for you to do that. You can just walk around at your own pace, get used to the controls without any sort of pressure. And the game itself isn't that long. I mean, I'm quote unquote experienced at gaming. So, I spent maybe 2.5 hours with the game. I would imagine somebody who's pretty new, probably looking at maybe 3 to 5 hours, which is fairly short for a game, believe it or not. Rayman Legends and The Walking Dead, you're going to be spending a lot more time than that with it, which, you may say good, you may say not so good. That's up to you. Games will definitely give you more for your money than movies will, that's for sure. So again, Gone Home, I think, is a perfect way to get used to that 2 analog stick control scheme, and something that you can build off of if you want to, and move forward with something like a first-person shooter if you'd like to in the future. And I mean, that's kind of it. I didn't want to make this too long, but I did want to leave you all with a few closing thoughts. First off, this list isn't exhaustive. These are my personal picks, so you can agree with them or disagree with them. That's fine. You may have some other games that you like to play. That's fine too. But really, gaming shouldn't discourage anyone from playing. It really breaks my heart when I hear people say, oh, I tried to get into gaming, but my boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, whoever, they just threw so much at me and I just couldn't get into it, and it was frustrating. It was hard to use the controller. And I get that because I'm very passionate, and I had to learn this the hard way myself. I would thrust people into games that I was really into, and they just kind of get, yeah, this is great, I love it, But I mean, they didn't love it because they just didn't understand. They were frustrated, and that's okay. I think games are a great way to bond, and they're a great way to share experiences. Just as you'll stand around the water cooler and say, oh, I watched this movie and it was great, and I love this scene in it. And you walk out of the movie theater with a friend and, oh, this scene was great. You can do the same thing with games. You can walk away and say, oh, that level was cool, or I loved when you did that move. Rayman Legends in particular, that's a game that's co-op. So you can both play at the same time. And I just think those experiences should be shared by more people. And I think they can be, as long as you sort of cut through all the passion and all the quote unquote, the hardcore games. Again, like your Halo, like your Call of Duty. There are so many different types of games out there. There's strategy games, there are adventure games, there are platformers, there are shooters, there are story-driven experiences, there are real-time strategy games. There are so many out there. You just have to find the games that are right for you. And I hope that some of these games are right for you. And as the late president of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, once said, video games are meant to be just one thing: fun. Fun for everyone. And I hope that these games are not only fun for you, but they get you interested in more games to play in the future, maybe just with yourself or with others. And hopefully we can spread the joy that is video games to as many people as possible. And that pretty much concludes the webinar. So a couple personal plugs for me. Again, my name is Gregory T. Obert. As far as the author thing goes, The Man on the Bench is my first book. It's out on Kindle, Books A Million, Audible, and iTunes. You can find more from me at The Gobert Report and Meditations by Gregory T. Obert. The one is a talk show, which is more political and current events, whereas Meditations is to help you with your healing. And of course, as I mentioned, Self-Start Academy, which teaches you new skills right now, some of which for free, and you can go sign up right now. But the only thing, if you only remember one link, and all of these will definitely be in the description below on YouTube in the future. If you only remember one link, check out my website, narcissistically named www.gregorytobert.com. And then a couple resources for you that I said I would give you. First off, the ESRB site, where you can go check ratings for games and see how they rate games. Metacritic, I think, is a good one to list as well. When you think of movies, people tend to think of Rotten Tomatoes to see whether they think, a movie's good or not. Metacritic is essentially that for games. It takes all the scores of every reviewer out there and puts it into one, meta score, if you will. I also have links here to gameplay for all three of the games, so you can go check them out on YouTube. These don't have any commentary to them, so you don't have to listen to someone drone on or make bad jokes. I didn't put them in the webinar just so that it's a little quicker, but also because sometimes YouTube and copyright, they get a little goofy about it. Again, there's selfstartacademy.teachable.com, my website. And of course, I want to thank Coach Hassan and My Daily 11, for putting this on. And you can find Coach Hassan at coachhassan.com or My Daily 11 if you're not a subscriber at mydaily11.com. So thanks for watching, everyone, and happy gaming. Till next time.